First home in a stagnation and more government stimulus? We've got Michael Yardney today, CEO of Metropole Property Strategist, to help uncover these questions and more. So do you want to explain to us maybe what a typical cycle might look like and where we are in comparison to that?
So some people draw the cycle as a clock, others draw it as a wave moving on, but typically people see 12 o'clock as the boom in the property cycle, and then there's a downturn. Every boom always leads to the next downturn, just as every downturn leads to the next boom stage of the cycle. And people are most confident at the boom stage when the media is full of positive messages, auction clearance rates are high, property values are going up. But cycles don't occur because of a specific period of time. It's often said they're 7 or 8 years. It's got to do with a whole lot of socioeconomic factors. And there are cycles within cycles. So Melbourne works at a different cycle to Sydney, to Brisbane. And similarly, within Melbourne, there's the inner suburbs, the outer suburbs, the middle ring suburbs, apartments, townhouses, new apartments. So as I said, what was unusual recently in the recent boom was everything was in sync, in synchronous. But now it's actually a bit different. So the market has moved to the downturn stage of the cycle and into a slump stage. And if you look at the property clock, we're probably around 5 o'clock. And then eventually confidence is going to come back. So at the moment, fear is stronger than greed, the two emotions that drive human sentiment and markets and cycles. So currently, FOMO, the fear of missing out of last year, is gone, and now it's FOBE, fear of buying early. But I think later this year or early next year, people are going to realize, hey, inflation's under control. Yes, it went up to what they said, and now it's under control. It's going to come down. I think after 1 or 2, maybe even 3, but more likely 2 interest rate rises, people are going to say, hey, that's about as bad as it's going to get. Okay. And they're going to get on with their lives, because at the moment people are putting their lives on hold, but they're still getting married, they're still having babies, they're still getting divorced, they're still moving jobs, they're still moving interstate, they're coming from overseas. And once they are more comfortable and greed overtakes fear, the cycle will move on. So when consumer confidence comes back, we'll come to the bottom of that clock in the property cycle where buyers will get in, vendors will start putting their properties on the market. And I know while a lot of your clients and our clients think as property investors, 70% of the market's driven by owner-occupiers. So buyers are sellers. If I'm going to sell my home, I've got to move somewhere else. So houses are going to come on the market, but new buyers are going to come on. And so the market stabilizes. It doesn't suddenly get into a boom again. And after a period of stability of property values, then the market will start to pick up again. And while the clock represents a boom between 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock, the boom is the shortest phase of the property cycle. It doesn't go for very long. I don't know when the next property boom is going to occur. I don't even want to predict that. So I don't like making forecasts. I have expectations. So I expect the property market to even out soon. And then what's going to happen is, as consumer sentiment picks up, people will come into the market, but a lot of people will still be priced out, Nathan. Interest rates are higher and will go up a bit more, drop a bit, but they're going to be different to the last couple of years. Inflation is going to have hurt some people. Their cost of living is going to have gone up. Their others who would maybe be first home buyers, their rents will have gone up a bit too much. So they're going to have difficulty getting into the property market. So I see moving forward a much more fragmented property market, where some people are just not going to be able to do anything for a while, but there's always going to be people with higher skills, higher wages, multiple sources of income who are going to be able to afford to and prepared to pay to move house, to keep growing, to have going to family formation stage of their ages. A lot of millennials are. So some segments of the market will do well. And unfortunately, it's not a judge of people, but I believe the lower socioeconomic areas and the first home buyers are going to stagnate for quite a few years, Nathan.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Do you think there'll be any government intervention if the unaffordability piece continues to stay out of hand? Do you think the government might come through with more? We've seen the home guarantee scheme, we've seen home build schemes. Do you think there'll be more of that to come in years and months ahead?
Well, the government wants to put people into homes, but what those schemes do is create demand as opposed to supply, and that's what pushes up the values, because for most things, supply and demand is one of the factors, and particularly in real estate, in the cost and the value of assets. Now, the challenge is building costs have gone up considerably. In fact, the building costs for apartments, high-rise apartments, which is what we need more of. By the way, they don't make good investments, but what they do is they house all these hundreds of thousands of people who are coming from overseas. According to the Cordell's figures, which is an organisation that keeps track of building costs, it's going to cost today maybe close to 60% more to build those high-rise towers than pre-COVID. Houses are costing about 25% more. A lot of the apartment buildings and the new housing estates that are on the drawing board are not financially viable at the moment. Developers are there to make money, not make a loss. If they can't get the pre-sales, they're not going to build those towers, which means that if there is demand driven by incentives like the first homeowner grant, which is fantastic, we've got a lot of people into the market, a lot of first home buyers into the market, that'll push more demand. But unless wages go up and there's more affordability, and I can't see that happening for a while, it's going to be really financially unviable to build a lot of those developments. I think it brings another question in. So what's going to happen? Because rents are going to go up. How are people going to actually be able to afford this? So maybe an area that the government could or should intervene is say, hey, maybe we should help investors because we can't build all the accommodation that's necessary. Maybe they should actually not only help first home buyers, no argument about that, not only help the disenfranchised people, we need more social housing and private investors won't provide that. So the government should do that. And maybe they should look at, hey, maybe we should actually help the investors as a dual prong approach. We'll build the social housing. Please, Mr. Mum and Dad investor, help create some accommodation for those people who need to rent.
Definitely. Even making it easier to do dual accommodation. I know there's a lot of areas that have limitations on the number of dwellings you can build in one area. Simple things like that. You'd be surprised, I guess, how many investors would actually jump at that.
Very much so. I agree. But at the moment, investors are seeing as ugly, greedy investors. And I know most of my clients, they're not ugly. but more than that, the government sees them as an ATM. Hey, let's tax them for this. Let's tax them for that. But most investors are not ugly and greedy. They're mums and dads. We know that most investors, Nathan, never get past their first or second property. So they're just ordinary Australians trying to develop some financial independence. And if we're given better incentives, more people would do that.
This concludes part 2 of our 3-part series with Michael. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down below so that you know when the last one comes out. In the next one, we'll continue where we left off here today. And guys, as always, thanks for watching.